Guidance is internal. Ignition sequence starts. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Permission to board. Permission to come aboard. Permission to board. Permission to bring me aboard. Permission to come aboard.
Welcome to the Permission Granted podcast. Here's DA.
All right, welcome inside the latest edition of the Permission Granted podcast, everybody. Thanks for being with us. As you know, we put one of these out each and every week, all off-the-air content, so kind of a behind-the-scenes of the DA show, available if you subscribe to us on iTunes or on SoundCloud, which is the DA show on CBS Sports, if you just want to search it at either one of those places, either one of those platforms. Also, you can go to our YouTube page. They're always there as well, youtube.com/The DA Show. Subscribe there, and I always tweet them out and put them on our Facebook page, facebook.com/The DA Show. So we'll talk to Mraz coming up here a little bit later, see how he survived his bird flu this week. But coming up this weekend is the debut of a in-depth feature-length documentary on Kobe Bryant, which premieres on Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time and Pacific on Showtime. And the director of this is Gotham Chopra, and you might actually recognize that last name. It's because he is the son of Deepak Chopra, who's a renowned physician and best-selling author and spiritual leader as well. And a guy that carries a lot of weight. So his son has actually done a documentary on Deepak named Decoding Deepak, and he's a very accomplished guy himself as an author, as a filmmaker, etc. So he got to spend almost 2 years with Kobe in just kind of privacy and making this documentary. So I'm very excited to have him on. He is from Boston, and so he's a huge Boston sports fan. And I know what you're saying. All right, more of this? Look, what can I say? I mean, the Patriots win the Super Bowl. A lot of people felt like the Red Sox won the offseason. There just always seems to be something in terms of Boston and the sports landscape and Deflategate and where are we there. Gotham, how are you, buddy?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me.
You got it, man. Thanks so much. You know, I introduced you as the son of Deepak, and I wonder, I caught myself, is that fair? Are you sick of that? Do you just want to not be, always announced as Deepak's son?
I'm so used to it at this point in my life that it doesn't faze me anymore. There's probably a time where I probably resisted that, but no longer, so no problem.
So we start with you because you say that on your Twitter profile, you're a true believer of the religion of sports. Knowing your parents, knowing your father, and knowing how you grew up, what do you mean in being a believer of the religion of sports? Because I imagine that takes on a whole different connotation.
Yeah, well, in some ways, yes. I mean, I actually, it's funny, I tell my dad all the time, who's actually the complete antithesis. My dad doesn't know the difference between, the Celtics and the Red Sox. I'm also a Boston, born and bred Boston loyalist, so that definitely had impact in my working with Kobe. But, I always tell my dad that, look, everything you talk about happens in the world of sports, in the religion of sports. You become something bigger than yourself. You have to, surrender to something that you have no control over. You go on pilgrimages to these hallowed grounds, whether it's Lambeau Field or Yankee Stadium or Fenway Park. So, all of these things that we associate with religion and spiritual traditions, they exist for real. I mean, I went to the Super Bowl. I'm a diehard Patriots fan. I mean, the agony and ecstasy that, was in that last few minutes of the Super Bowl, tell me something in spiritual traditions that even comes close to that. And in religion, you got to buy into it. In sports, you just got to show up. I can tell you my entire childhood growing up in Boston, except for the Celtics, but the fall off from '86 to Len Bias happened right after, at the end of that year, at the end of that championship year. And my entire childhood, the Patriots were cursed. The Red Sox, of course, were cursed, long before that. The Celtics, it was sad. The Bruins, just kept on losing to the Canadians. So I feel like we have earned it, yes, and the last, 14 years has been very kind to us. But, I know I've been around long enough to know that it comes in waves. This wave has been extended and nice, and, I try not to kind of rub it in the face of others, but it's tough. It's been a good ride.
Well, yeah, it's been a great ride. I worked in Boston at 98.5 The Sports for almost 4 years, so some of my best friends are from Boston. I had the most wonderful time. I have a ton of friends that are still there. But boy, with every title, it's tough for the rest of America here, Gotham.
I know. And I mean, I've lived in Los Angeles now for, over a decade. I still get back every year for, Patriots games, opening day and all of that. But, living behind enemy lines, it's not easy.
So on to Kobe Bryant. Let me just ask you this. You talk about the true believer, the religion of sports. Kobe strikes everybody as a deeper person than your normal athlete. He's more thoughtful than your normal athlete. How spiritual is Kobe on a daily basis?
I guess it depends on how you describe or how you define spirituality. Kobe obviously has been enormously influenced. I think, when you ask him who his muses are and mentors are, the first person often that comes to mind or that he'll talk about is Phil Jackson. So I think, Kobe's kind of perspective on everything now, on and off the court, there's a spiritual element to it. In terms of his practice, that's sort of, I think Kobe's probably the best person to ask. I will tell you, there were moments over the course of filming this documentary over the last year where I got to be, in a gym, by myself or, with a very small camera crew and watch Kobe work out. And I would say there was a spiritual element to that. Watching Kobe Bryant in an empty gym with a basketball is like, being at a monastery or being with Picasso in his studio. There is something just so disciplined and so focused. It's almost like, a martial art you're watching this guy go through. So in that sense, it's very spiritual. But, in terms of like the more traditional practice, I think Kobe's probably the best guy to talk about that.
So Kobe has very obviously gone through a personal transition, I would say, over the last 2 to 3 years where he realizes his basketball mortality. He's, I think, more open to letting people see who he is. Obviously, if he's going to agree to something like this, he is very aware of this is how I want to be viewed or this is who I really am. And he's just doing more stuff like this. So why do you think, first and foremost, he's allowing us to get closer to a guy we were never really allowed to get too close to?
Yeah, I think you've already sort of hit it on the head, which is, here's a guy who's had something in his life, basketball, that has given his life purpose and meaning, like pretty much since he was 6 years old, and he talks about this a lot in the film. Now here he is at an inflection point where I don't think the love is any less, but physically and everyone can see it and he talks about it, it's going away. And so while he's certainly not, the guy's as competitive and as focused and works out as hard as anyone, I do think there's this curiosity about the rest of his life. And he's an ambitious guy, so I think in terms of what he wants to do after basketball, is lofty, and I think he's curious also not just about basketball but about other people, and that's kind of how this project started. Was this curiosity around the nature of greatness and how do people succeed, at all sorts of things. And Kobe is somebody who has achieved greatness on the basketball court, and for him, I think there was this desire to understand, like, if there's something analogous, with other people in other walks of life. So that's kind of how it started. And I think, he's a guy like, this wasn't, some giant brand building exercise. This was Kobe, like, saying, okay, like, yeah, everyone has an opinion on me. Everybody's got an opinion on, certain things that happened in his life or in his career. Let me kind of let you in and just give you my point of view on most of the stuff. And that was sort of the mandate from day one, is like, this has got to be, quote, stuff. We use Kobe language. I'm on the radio, so I'm using stuff, instead of what Kobe would say. But, this has got to be stuff that you can't Google. So while we talk a lot about the things that people, already know, because, like, the markers in his life are pretty well known, he gives you his point of view and his, it's really personal. And I think also kind of therapeutic. He's sort of used that word in describing the film.
Did he have final editorial control?
Yes. I'm just going to say that outright. I mean, I will say, like, he did, and I think that's, this is a Showtime movie, so it was really a sort of deal between him and Showtime, and I was there to help sort of shepherd and shape it. So, yeah, he had final say, but I think, he was very collaborative. He was also very involved. Like, this is not a film on Kobe, it's a film with Kobe. And, one thing I know from, being a fan, watching his career, although, I grew up a Celtics fan, so it's sort of in my DNA to hate Kobe Bryant and just hate everything about the Lakers before I got to know him. But, I knew from watching his career, like, Kobe's sort of at his best when you challenge him, when you go at him, when you engage him and you fight with him. And he's at his best when he can be in conflict and push other guys. So in that sense, I mean, it was very collaborative. It was challenging, and it was intense. But I think what came out the other end is pretty special.
There are occasions, I think frequently, where people skip over the greatness of Kobe and go right from Michael to LeBron. LeBron, from day one, was supposed to be the next Jordan, whereas Kobe was drafted coming out of kind of nowhere. He grew up in Italy. He never went to college, kind of like LeBron, but he was the number one overall pick, traded on draft night. And for all of Kobe's accomplishments, I feel like he might resent that we sometimes skip over his legacy and go right from, like, the torches passed from Michael to LeBron. Do you sense that within him?
Not really. I mean, I think, first of all, Kobe's pretty close with both of those guys. And I think Kobe's, he talks about in the film, like, after he won in 2010 and sort of got his fifth ring, he felt like, I now deserve to actually be in this conversation, sit at the table of the greats. And I think when Kobe sort of, he's very close to LeBron, and I know they're friends, and he has a lot of respect for his game. But Kobe's also like, and I mean, it sounds like a cliche, but, he's a student of the game. The people that he really compares himself to or emulates are the greats, like, whether it's Jordan, Bird, Magic, and then going back before that, Oscar Robertson, Bill Russell, like, and that's, I mean, look, there's a lot of parts I loved about working with Kobe, but that guy knows more about basketball. Like, being able to sit down with Kobe and look at game tape of, I'm a Celtics fan, so Larry Bird and Kobe say, let me, like, break down the guy's pump fake. That was amazing for me. It was fun for me, and he really, like, just loves the game so much. And, what he did for me was kind of what he said, Tex Winter, one of his old mentors used to do for him. And so I think when it comes to basketball, he's happy to be in the conversation of, the NBA greats.
So for a long time, Kobe seemed angry. He kind of seemed, through gritted teeth, he was driving and ambitious and cutthroat. And not to say that he's soft now, but there's a softening of that. But I think the rape trial in Colorado added something to this. I think his battles with Shaq added to this. I think the Phil Jackson stuff in Phil's book about how he's uncoachable added to this. There's been an element of Kobe's great, but you can't really ever embrace him. Kind of maybe LeBron's more kind of comforting or cuddly, or certainly Magic was. Does Kobe, does he resist that type of perception that he has?
Yeah, he's, I mean, perhaps at some point in his career did, and I've only gotten to know him over the last few years, but he's a polarizing personality, and he's totally 100% fine with that, I think, at this point of his life. So I think, he... it's funny. I asked him a question very similar to this about, like, yeah, you're sort of like mellow now and you've got a lot of Phil Jackson in you. And he said, yeah, well, don't confuse wisdom for weakness. Look, you can't play in the league for 20 years. You can't deal with the type of celebrity that he's had and all the off-court stuff without getting some perspective on it. And I think, and I wouldn't want to sort of speak for him, but, like, what I feel is, like, he's sort of at this stage of his life. He's also a dad. I mean, he's got, like, he has this sort of perspective that comes with age and maturity, that he's like, this is who I am, and I will tell you, this movie the people who love Kobe Bryant will love him even more. The people who don't like Kobe Bryant, and there's plenty of those, will probably find a million things, because he's very sort of outspoken in this movie. So, but he's comfortable with who he is. That's what you walk away, I think, from just sort of getting to know him at this point in his life.
There was a time real early in his career where people kind of viewed him as trying to create his own persona, maybe artificially, right? Because he always, all of his post-game sound bites sounded like Michael. His game was patterned after Michael. He went to the prom with Brandy. It just seemed, I think people felt like something there wasn't real. Do you think that now he's showing more of a real Kobe, or what was that transition about when he first started to become a real superstar?
I think, Kobe he's, like you said it earlier, it's not even fair to describe Kobe as one of the brightest athletes you'll ever meet. He's one of the brightest people. He never went to college, but that guy learned more, like, sort of from real life than anyone I've ever sort of been around. So, I mean, I think he adapted with the times, he adapted with the media, I think all of those things you sort of listed, were sort of authentic to who he was at that time. I mean, he was a kid. He came into the league, his parents had to sign his first Lakers contract. So he really was a kid, and he just sort of had to grow up under the scrutiny of everyone. And then, things happened on and off the court. He got married really young. So I think he had a kid really young, and all this stuff's in the movie. And I think, sure, I mean, a lot of that changed him. But I think the version you're seeing now, I think that's authentic to who he is now. And again, he's very sort of comfortable with that journey. So I think, you get that sense from him now, is like, this is who I am. And by the way, he's 36 years old. Like, so, Kobe says in basketball years, he's like 75, but he's still only 36. And I think he's very self-aware of that too. He's got a long life ahead of him, and, most of it will be spent off the court.
One thing that always pops up with him is being an outsider, feeling like an outsider when he was growing up in Italy, not speaking the native language, having to learn it, never really having close friends because he was moving around a lot, then coming across here to the States in high school and not feeling like he was a normal American high schooler. Then when he gets to the NBA, he's not the normal American basketball player, and he didn't go to the AAU system. And how much of that is part of his identity, always striving to be, I don't know, maybe make up for feeling like you're the outsider?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is in superhero stories, you always have the origin story. The seminal event of someone's childhood that defines who they are. I think for Kobe, growing up in Italy and sort of being this black kid out there for his formative years, starting when he was 6 years old, and being that outsider and spending all those years out there, I think it really did define him. I mean, he talks about this openly, so it's not me sort of, putting that on him. And then I think coming back to suburban Philadelphia and now sort of strangely being the Italian kid who, was back in that system, but also having, this superpower, which was his basketball skills. So I think all of that, really did define him. And then sort of being the outsider, because he comes into the league as a 17, 18-year-old with grown men. And so I think that's always been the thing that has propelled him, and something he's really gotten comfortable with and really embraced.
So it's interesting because he's always kind of admitted that having really close friends is not what he does best. He never was able to really have long-standing friendships growing up, and that because he's been so ambitious and so fast-moving that there's like-minded people around him, but deep friendships is not really what he does. So you might have had the best access to him out of anybody in years, considering you spent that much time with him. How is his social, I guess, relationships outside of basketball?
Yeah, I think that's partly a myth that he's not a good friend, and he's probably perpetuated that myth a lot. I mean, look, I'm 40 years old. I have a wife and a kid, and when I'm not working, I'm pretty busy, like with my kid's life and my family and all of that sort of stuff. I don't see a huge difference with Kobe. He's very focused on his craft. He has friends. Does he have like sort of this deep friendship that I don't know. I feel like that's sort of the type of stuff that we see in movies, and we all sort of wonder whether or not we have relationships like that. Kobe, look, there's no question that his intensity of focus on his craft, he made sacrifices through his life, and there were consequences to those things, but it also kind of took him to the place where he wanted to be, which is, being one of the best basketball players ever to play. But I do think at this point in his life, I found him to be a really good guy and like somebody, I do consider a friend at this stage of my life. Is he my best friend forever? Probably not, but my wife is, and I just sort of reserved for her. So I think, Kobe's a really interesting guy at a really interesting stage of his life. He certainly made for a great, subject for a documentary. And I'm going to obviously be curious to see how people sort of react to it.
Comes up on Saturday, 9 o'clock Eastern and Pacific on Showtime. I guess the biggest question is, did your dad see the movie?
My dad is seeing the movie tonight.
Oh, he's seen it tonight. Okay, so
yeah.
we don't have an official review from Deepak yet.
No, not as yet. I will say this, and I told this someone recently. It's like, because I did a documentary on my father a few years ago, and if there could be two more opposite people in the world, I would be hard-pressed to find anyone more different than my dad and Kobe Bryant. So, I'm going to be as curious as anyone to sort of hear what my dad thinks.
Have you ever tried to sit your dad down and watch like a football game and say, no, this is what you're watching?
I stopped trying to do that a long time ago. I did, Kobe and my dad did meet a few months ago while I was working on this. And my dad, who's, knows enough to know that Kobe Bryant is a superstar athlete, the first thing he said to him was, "It's really great to meet you. I know you're very accomplished and you've won all these Super Bowls. And that's really great." And I just was like, "Dad, can you just not go there?" So, yeah.
But because Kobe is a very worldly guy and because Kobe's a really thoughtful, intellectual guy, that can upset him. The normal kind of everyday basketball player that defines himself by titles might resent that. For Kobe, he knows enough of your dad, which is probably like, I'm in the middle of greatness, so as long as you think I won something, it's probably okay. Yeah,
yes. No, I think, Kobe, look, more than my dad, Kobe has, two daughters, and I think there's nothing more humbling than that, as everybody who has kids knows. So, he's got a good head on his shoulders. And I think, he just sort of, like I said now, I feel like 5 times, he's comfortable with who he is. And I feel like that's, why this documentary is what it is because of his willingness to sort of be honest and be himself. And, hopefully people will see that.
Gotham Chopra is the director of Kobe Bryant's Muse. It comes up on Saturday, 9 o'clock Eastern and Pacific on Showtime. He's also the documentarist behind a documentary about his dad, Decoding Deepak, which is an awesome film as well. He's an author, and he does everything, and it's really cool to have you here on the show, man. Well, thanks so much. I would love to do this again, man, and I can't wait till the premiere of this, and I know it's going to be out of this world, so thanks again.
Thank you for having me.
All right, welcome inside the Permission Granted podcast post-interview. Awesome stuff with the son of Deepak Chopra, and that is Gotham Chopra. Excited about this Kobe Bryant special, and remember, you can always subscribe to us by going to youtube.com/The DA Show or on either SoundCloud or, of course, iTunes. We tweet them out. We post them on Facebook as well, but also simply search The DA Show, CBS Sports, and you'll find them there. Mraz joins me now, and he is not 100%. How would you qualify your health status right now? Probable, doubtful, or what's the other one?
Downgraded to out, now they've done.
Well, no, there's 3, right? There's doubtful. Doubtful, questionable, probable.
There we go.
Where are you for tonight's show?
I'm probable.
Okay.
I'm here. I've made the trek.
Okay.
To say I'm 100% would be the furthest from the truth.
Furthest thing from the truth.
Yeah, I felt a lot better when I entered the building, but again, I'm feeling a little, just very fatigued. I don't know. This beat the crap out of me.
Well, we've talked about this on the show. I definitely think there's a connection to you eating 51 chicken nuggets and not only eating a lot of trashy fast food with chemicals laced through them, and all types of food additives that your body has to kind of process and combat. That might also flush out some other viruses or bacteria that could be in your system and your immune system. But also the fact that you licked the desk essentially when you ate it without hands when you were peacocking.
No hands.
No hands. And then also when you were dipping them in between a dusty Zubaz bandana that you had found in the closet.
And let's be honest, my forehead isn't exactly clean 15 hours into a day either.
No. So, I mean, it kind of makes sense,
Yeah, it is. To be honest, I saw the doctor and I brought up the chicken challenge to the doctor.
Okay, and
I hadn't told you this before. We're talking about this now. I said, could there be any correlation to the fact that I ate 50 chicken McNuggets in 10 minutes last week? She giggled, looked at me, thought I was kidding, and I said, no, seriously, I'm just hypothetically spitballing. And she goes, what the heck would you eat 50 chicken McNuggets for in 10 minutes? So I had to explain further, radio, the show, the whole thing.
Fair question.
And she said, to be honest with you, I don't know if there's a direct correlation other than the fact that kind of stuff, that's not good for your body and will beat the crap out of your immune system. So, yeah, to say you get sick a week later, it's not the furthest thing to get from point A to point B here that somewhere along the line, that chicken nugget challenge caused me to get sick.
Yeah. When I was in high school, I could eat a 20-piece, no problem, put it down, and be good to go. And I certainly have a taste for a Big Mac or something. But I always, not just this, but these are the types of stories that always give me pause. Whenever I have that craving come back, I'm like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Just because you don't know what it really can do to your body. This is a very dramatic. You ate 51 chicken nuggets in 10 minutes and then you got really sick. Right. So it's really dramatic. But there's a lot less dramatic things that happen when you eat fast food.
Exactly. And that take their toll if you keep eating fast food for the rest of your life. And for any food, for that matter. There's something you said to me about a year ago off air about drinking soda. How every time you have a soda, it takes like 10 glasses of water to get your body right.
Yeah.
To this day, I did it about an hour ago. I wanted a little something when I was trying to eat my dinner, other than my water, a little something with flavor. And I'm like, having a soda isn't worth it because it's going to take me 10 waters or whatever. So just something like that scares me. So same thing applies with fast food.
Yeah. I told you that story because I went to the chiropractor. I was my back had been kind of getting real tight. My jaw was real tight, and I wasn't able to sleep. And so I went to the chiropractor, and she was like, when you do the initial survey, okay, well, when did this start and what happened? And she said, well, how much water do you drink? And I said, well, I probably drink like maybe 4 or 5 glasses a day. And she goes, well, you need to get that up. And so, I usually drink a lot of water just because I'm on the air. She said, you probably want to get that up to about 7 to 9 glasses a day. Okay. She said, do you ever drink any soda or tea? And I said, I might have a soda, maybe a Coke or something like that, 2 or 3 times a week. And she said, okay, well, if you do that, for every soda that you have, it dehydrates you another 7 to 9 glasses. So
insane.
So you have to make sure, because there's so much sugar in that you have to make sure that you kind of double your water. And I was like, well, I like the taste of Coke, but it ain't worth 14 glasses of water to get back to even.
Heck no, and that's what I thought in there. So, I mean, kind of the same rules apply. You figure you eat 50 chicken nuggets or eat that much fast food, what is it going to take the next day? Like, what I ate the next day was constant water. I ate just broccoli. I had a little grilled chicken with broccoli for dinner, but it was a lot of vegetables. I had, some fruit in there just to trying to counteract it. And who wants to live a life that way where you're taking one big punch there and then the next day it's just a complete different polar opposite? That long term is not healthy for you.
I thought the most interesting thing about it was that you said after it you had like a migraine headache.
Huge.
And you're not really a headache guy, right?
No. And when I was younger, I used to get them, but not really. No, I used to just power through.
Some people get migraines all the time. You're not one of those guys.
No, like we keep ibuprofen or whatever in the house for headaches. Danielle will get them or whatever. I don't really. I never really tap into that bottle. So I had to the point where I felt like there was somebody inside my skull punching out my eyebrow.
This was right after it.
Right after it. Yeah, I would say a good 10 minutes after it, yeah.
We had about an hour and a half after the chicken challenge or 2 hours until the end of the show. And by the end of the show, Moralia had left. Steve-O was breathing really heavily.
And we had no idea if he was literally breathing by the time he got home because nobody heard from him.
It was very obvious. He was kind of sweating and breathing heavily. And for you, after the show 2 hours later, you said, look, I feel like crap, but ultimately, like, the worst thing is I just have a splitting headache right now. And that would have never happened unless you had eaten all of that fast food with all of the, I guess, the salt in and dehydrated you.
It totally dehydrated me. It was a ridiculous headache. So, yeah, now we're a full week since then, and I've had nothing but body problems since. I literally have not been 100% since the chicken challenge because I had that immediate after effect and I was okay, and then I actually got sick this week. So I don't know when I'm going to be right again, but let that be a lesson to you kids. It doesn't come, easy when you win a championship like that.
No, the next challenge I think is going to have to be not food related. As much as I like food related challenges, and Steve already wants back in the ring, I don't know that it's not healthy.
I've been talking to my PR firm. I'm contemplating retirement. I really am.
I don't blame you. It's not easy. It really isn't. We just had Gotham Chopra here on the show, and I'm excited about this Kobe thing. And I asked him this question, and I wanted to throw this by you as well. I feel, and he kind of dismissed this notion, but I still feel it. I think Kobe resents the fact that in some ways his greatness is going to end up being overlooked in time. In some ways, because LeBron is so otherworldly and kind of came in during Kobe's prime. Kobe will likely leave with more rings. It would be hard for me to imagine LeBron gets 3 more. But
you never know, though.
You never know. I mean, if he gets one this year and suddenly he has 3, it just does change things. But, Kobe, it was supposed to be Michael to Kobe. Now it has always felt like Michael to LeBron. And I've even had to catch myself sometimes when I will mention the greats of all time and not throw Kobe in the mix. I think he resents that a little bit. Gotham said no. What do you think?
I think he definitely resents it. I think when you think of that, it's almost to a lesser effect the middle child syndrome. He's kind of the middle child between LeBron and Jordan. And when you think about that, so the same kind of mentality that a middle child would have is kind of be the way he feels in between. And I wonder if he resents the fact that, a lot of people look at his titles early and go, well, it's because Shaq was there. Maybe he wouldn't have won those without Shaq.
Totally.
And it's no secret he doesn't get along with Shaq either. It's not even somebody who he can, enjoy the rest of his life reminiscing on championships with. That probably eats at him too, that he couldn't get it done without Shaq early in his career.
Yeah, the second 2, I'm sure, mean more to him than the first 3.
Have to. I would think.
Because he even talked about like the redemption of that. And when he won his final, said, what does this mean? And he said, it means I've won more than Shaq. So there is something that he obviously measures himself against Shaq with. But we talk about LeBron because he right from 18 years old, he was supposed to be better than Jordan, or he was going to be the next great one. And Kobe never had that, right? He was great. He was an all-star. He was a scorer. He won championships early. But it wasn't like we woke up one day and was like, oh, that guy's going to be the next Michael. He impersonated Michael a lot. He sounded like Michael. He looked like Michael on the floor. But nobody ever said that's going to be the next Michael Jordan. And now once we did that with LeBron, and LeBron is now, for the last, I would say he went to Miami 4 years ago, now kind of 5 years ago. I would say 2 years before that when the countdown was on till when he was going to leave Cleveland. For a good 7 years, he has blotted out the sun in the NBA. And even though Kobe's won a couple of titles, we only talk about LeBron, really.
It's unlike any other sport where you talk about the teams and everything else. With the NBA, the first word you mention is LeBron, where you'll mention team names first in other sports, generally, unless you're considering Peyton Manning and Brady. But yeah, you're absolutely right, and that clouds up the fact that Kobe's been here for how long. And you kind of almost feel bad for him in a way. You really do.
Kobe was a really unlikable guy unless you were a Laker fan for a long time. He just was cutthroat and merciless, and he seemed like he was miserable and brooding and detached, and it was just hard to root for him. And I would say over the last couple of years, and it's not the injuries because I wish he was playing, he just has come off as way more real. He's more vulnerable. He's more mortal.
It's like a sympathetic figure in a way.
Yeah, also because he's stuck on a really bad basketball team now.
Right, just what happened with Jimmy Kimmel the other night. And, he's looking back at his team celebrating the 14-win team, and I think he just kind of looks at, you almost feel bad for the guy, what's happened to the Lakers, and this was supposed to be his team.
Yeah, and so I think he's really likable now, in whatever ways Kobe can still be likable. But also, I think we're going to end up appreciating his greatness way more after he retires, because people will look back and be like, man, look at where he ranks on the all-time scoring list. Look at all of his numbers. Look at his points totals. Look at his 5 championships. Look at how many times he lost 2 NBA finals. He went to 7 NBA finals. My guess is he doesn't get back to any of those at this point. But he's going to have one of the most decorated NBA careers of all time when all is said and done.
Yeah, you never would have thought this 10 years ago, but you probably look back at Kobe Bryant's career and say that he was underrated.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's going to have an 81-point game. He's going to have
insane
5 titles with 2 separate eras of the Lakers, 7 NBA championship appearances, all those points, where he ranks on the all-time scoring list, it's going to be kind of an underrated career, which is crazy to say. So you got Ward or Steve-O on this podcast?
We got Ward. Jimmy Ward. Steve-O now is off golfing in Florida, so James Ward hops on here, and we're going to recap the Chicken Challenge and get into his trash talk in a little bit and how he feels since. Okay,
good. I want you to, you got to turn the screws on him a little bit because
of course.
He still feels like he was kind of the winner, the de facto winner, because he felt the best the next day. Exactly.
Well, there's plenty I got to get into with James. It's going to be a little patting on the back on the side B here. He also had to produce for me while I was out. I'm going to look for a little credit from James here on both the Chicken Challenge and my job in general.
All right, this is the Permission Granted podcast. Subscribe to it, iTunes, SoundCloud, and on YouTube.
All right, welcome into side B of the Permission Granted podcast. I am the executive producer of the DA Show, Sean Mraz, joined by the associate producer and for a night, the executive producer of the DA Show, James, Jimmy, Cool Kid, I suck at eating chicken nuggets, Ward. How you doing, James?
I'm doing well. I definitely don't suck at eating chicken nuggets, but I'll let that slide.
Well, we're not going to let it slide. We're going to jump right in. This is our first podcast post the Chicken Challenge. And as you know, I am your Stanley Cluck champion. Here's the bottom line, James. You rolled in there. Big crowd. We had it streamed live.
And somehow I opened up as the favorite.
Yeah, by Chicken Challenge startup time, you had emerged as a Vegas favorite, which I loved. All the money on you made me smile, brought just happiness to my eyes, and I exploded for nuggets. And then not only did you not beat me, but you finished in third place. You don't even beat Steve-O, who was the third place favorite, so to speak, or dog by a wide margin. James, what happened?
I looked at your pace early on, and I knew there was zero chance that I could keep up with you. The only way I had of even coming close to winning was if you somehow choked or if you just or if you threw up all over the nuggets. That was the only way I was going to place.
So at what point, did you at any point right before the contest think you were in trouble, or your confidence was so sky high until the first nugget was eaten?
And I'm a huge eater. I could eat, from right now until midnight. I can eat for the next 7 hours easily. Right. I don't eat fast. I went back and watched the video. My pace was a lot quicker.
You studied the game tape?
Yeah, I studied the game tape. My pace was a lot quicker than my normal eating speed.
Well,
but I'm just not a fast eater. And I got to be honest. I saw you doing 2 nuggets at a time and like punching them down your throat. I tried that once. If I tried it again, I would have puked right there.
All right. To be fair, I didn't know how I was going to respond to that. That was kind of a game plan I had going in because I knew nuggets were smaller. And Moralia, actually, to his credit, might have, and he doesn't even know this, given me a little kind of a head start on this because Moralia had talked the week before about eating boneless wings from Buffalo Wild Wings and how they're thicker than chicken nuggets and how he could eat 20 of them so he doesn't think there'll be a problem. It dawned on me that I, too, have eaten like boneless wings from Buffalo Wild Wings in one full swoop. So I knew that it was thicker. I knew I could fit that in my mouth. Probably not the right way to say that. So, but I didn't know how I was going to respond to that, and I was able to do it. And I think that strategy is probably what separated me from the pack.
Yeah, and I remember probably about 20 nuggets in, and you were 40 in, and Steve and I just looked at each other like we got zero chance here.
There was, if you look back at the tape, when it was I think I hit the 35
we just
mark.
Look at each other and start cracking up.
Right, you guys were maybe just finishing your first plates, and I was about to finish my second plate, I think, at that point, because I had 35. You guys maybe hit your 20, and when you hear Jacob and DA discuss it, and then you guys had this collective gasp, that was too funny. That was one of my favorite moments. What was your favorite? Was it something from Jacob with the call? What was your favorite moment of the Chicken Challenge?
The torque in your mouth, that was great from Jacob. I will never forget when Moralia and I made contact of you, eye contact after you had gotten, doubled us up basically. I remember around the 40 point, you had this look on your face like you weren't going to make it, and I kind of got excited like I might actually have a chance.
Oh, like I was the horse that got out to too big a lead in the Preakness, and you were going to make up time?
Or like the NASCAR and the wheels just fall off.
I wasn't going to let that happen. I could, to be honest, had I been facing somebody who talked less other than you and Steve, had it been Schwartz against something like that, there's a chance I probably don't eat the 50 nuggets because they're not going to put up as good an effort as you and Steve did. And I know this has been in the past. Same thing when I ate the wings at Croxley's last March. I probably got pushed to do more because of you guys. There's a chance I would have let the foot off the gas where I didn't feel good at 40. That may be the number I didn't stand. So for you guys, the crowd, everybody who enjoyed me eating 51, you probably owe that to yourselves, too. We'll pat on the back.
It was a good competition. I didn't finish. I probably could have finished, but I wasn't dying to really eat 6 nuggets by myself. That
right,
you know,
that's strange.
With you guys watching me, like it felt like a good time to call it. And at the same time, Steve-O did not look good when he finished 50. You had a rough couple days. I woke up the next morning like I just ate a big meal and I went to the gym and I was fine. So
I'm glad you brought that up. So basically, were you going with the Ricky Bobby approach? If you ain't first, you're last. Like you were gonna, if you weren't beating me anyway, there was no point in you even beating Steve because you'd rather just not feel like as bad a garbage as he felt like.
Yeah, and Steve was ahead of me too. He ate more than I did. I kept the same pace the whole time, and I knew I could have eaten 50 at that pace.
So what was more impressive, me on my pace, or the fact that Steve, skinny little Steve, ate 50 nuggets, period?
I expected you to do well. I didn't expect Steve to do well.
I don't think
I'm probably
anybody
more
did.
Impressed by Steve's performance.
See, I think this is one of those weird situations where I ate the chicken. I felt like garbage. I had the poultry sweats. But I think if you listed the winners from Chicken Challenge Day and you went in order, I think your number one winner is actually Steve because nobody expected him to eat 50, and I think your number 2 winner is Jacob because I think he was absolutely tremendous.
Jacob stole the show.
Right. So I ate all those nuggets, and I put on the show, and I was showboating, and I would say, in theory, I was probably number 3 on the must-watch list on Chicken Challenge Day.
Steve definitely, if you had set a number at how many nuggets he would have eaten, I probably would have set it like 35, 36,
I think
37.
That's fair. I was thinking the same thing, 35. Because I'm stunned. I just figured Steve was competitive. You get off to a good start. He would start laughing, do his stupid Steve laugh, not pay attention, and then all of a sudden he only eats 35 nuggets and he calls it a day.
Start checking the phone, ask you a question, not wait for the answer.
Exact. Typical Steve moment. But yeah, I mean, that's what I had thought. Now, so you felt completely fine since this contest.
Yeah, I felt great.
Felt great.
I didn't gain a pound the next day,
which is crazy. I had gained 3, and it took me 2 full days and a lot of broccoli and water to. What did you eat the next day? Just regular?
Yeah, I just had a regular. You know what? So we did the chicken challenge on a Thursday night.
Right.
That Friday morning, I had 4 eggs and cheese on a hero roll.
So you went,
and then I had a couple pieces of Pizza Friday. So, I probably had a meal in between that.
So what came first, the chicken or the egg? In your case, it was the chicken and then the egg.
The chicken and then the egg.
That's disgusting. You had 4 eggs the next morning? The next morning, I felt so dehydrated. I had so many bottles of water. I think the count was up. I had about 7 bottles of water before I walked into work the next day at 2 p.m. I ate nonstop just broccoli. I wasn't eating meat. And then later that night, I ate grilled chicken with broccoli just to get something with substance down. My body was just not right. And then you parlay that later on. Here I am. This is my first day back. Had to leave early and then was out sick. I really got sick this week, the week after the chicken challenge. And I know DA's been kind of joking around, but he might be serious that I had the quote-unquote bird flu. It's not literally the bird flu, but I later found out I had a little bit of a virus. And
it didn't help that you were basically licking the table.
Exactly.
You licked the table. You had, the nuggets drip down your sweaty belly, and then you ate them. You had them sitting in your bandana that's been on the desk for 2 years.
A lot of disgusting stuff.
You might as well go lick the train window or something.
Right. So here's my theory. You or Steve didn't necessarily get sick from eating that much McDonald's. Now, we didn't feel good, and I felt my body was weak the day after, so I know how bad the chicken nuggets really are for you. But I think my body, being a little heavier than you guys, eating the 50 nuggets in the showboating fashion, which I did, I would argue that my immune system was weakened.
Yeah.
Could you think that happens?
The number one thing for your immune system is diet, exercise, and rest.
And that's like it's like going into a boxing ring and taking a huge punch, which is what I did. And I think that really devastated me and hurt me.
Yeah, the bird flu. But let's face it, if you were an NFL player, you'd miss like 8 to 10 weeks with turf toe.
So you're saying I'm not the guy who would go, that's not true.
You're not a gamer.
We've documented over the past 2.5 years, if you've listened back on the overnights on the DA show, my flag football credentials. Now, I once got moved to defensive line off tight end. I have played through sprained knees. I once played on a really bad sprained ankle that I later found out was a little bit of a torn ligament. I'm heroic when it comes to situations. So
you're the healthiest 275-pound guy there is.
Timeout. I'm 260.
260?
Yeah, 275 is in my past.
You're making moves.
I am making moves, although, I haven't been able to go to the gym now the last couple days now that I've been sick. I need to right that ship or whatever. It's very weird. I've steadfast at the same weight since I've been sick, too, even though I'm eating the same stuff. But, yeah, so I don't like you taking shots that I'm not a gamer or anything like that. That being said, because I was out sick, you got to step up, and the first person outside of myself or Kenny Brock, and I guess a few of the other part-timers sprinkled in around Christmas week when me and Kenny were off for a couple weeks. But first time since this time change, somebody other than me has produced a show. How did it go, producing the DA show on your own?
I thought it went pretty well. Obviously, with the Des Bryant rumored controversy, we had stuff to talk about.
Right.
The Murray State coach was great. You love hearing stories of that around this time.
Which,
teams
by the way,
vying to.
I booked, by the way. So
but you gave him the wrong number, so you can't really. I mean, if I wasn't here, you had Moralia, you'd be running back and forth to the studios. Where's the guy? Where's the guy? Where's Coach Prom?
That was a mistake by me. But then again, I wasn't thinking right because I was sick. Well, I'll say this, James. What do you think is the hardest part of my job? Because now you got to live it. This gives the listeners a little behind the scenes on what we do. What is the hardest part of Mraz's job producing the show?
The hardest part of your job is, no doubt about it, podcasting. Because you have to you spend so much time keeping up with the show and your sort of your running log of the show.
Right.
And then cutting out the commercials for all the hours. It's just so time-consuming.
It is, and you got to do it in between breaks. And what he's referring to is if you go to the website, cbssportsradio.com, you click on the DA Show tab, Audio Insider, you can pretty much listen back to the entire show in hour-by-hour chunks, as well as all of our interviews. And as the show goes along, I'm constantly putting those up and doing a little description write-up for you guys so you know what you're clicking on. And I guess that's what James is talking about. But James, one of the biggest parts of my job, and I know it was a part that Kenny hated whenever he filled in, is doing the epic fail. Now, if you listen to the epic fail, it's at the end of the show. Usually it's the best moment on the show or the funniest moment on the show condensed into a 2-minute bit with drops put in the whole thing. I get a text from James Ward while he's doing the epic fails. I'm homesick. Did the epic fail. It's not funny. I mean, that just says it all. You had no confidence in yourself.
The problem is that for you do the epic fail 5 days a week. So you have ideas for different bits and beds and sound effects and movie cuts. The moment that we ended up choosing was a moment involving DA and myself, where DA was asking me to guess if was a real arena football team or if it was not.
Which shouldn't be that difficult. If you follow sports, you should know the Arena League like the back of your hand.
How many arena football teams are there?
I would say it's probably 20.
No, there's 12.
Wow, the league's gone down to 12 teams?
There's 12.
When I was a New York Dragons fan, I used to go to the games. There was a lot of teams.
There are 12.
12 teams. And how many did you get?
I think he gave me 6. I got 4 right, and I got 2 wrong.
So you didn't get 8 of them. That's crazy if there's only 12 teams. So that ended up being the fail. I don't want to get off kilter here.
That was
basically
not
knowing the arena? Okay, well, that's easy.
It was pretty funny, but the problem was that the bit was a little longer than the chunk, so I had to kind of condense it a little bit.
Well, of course.
And then I didn't come up with anything funny to add to it.
Well, wrong buzzer.
But we did the drop. We did the epic fail drop when I got it wrong, and we did the woo.
Is that your Viking horn there?
Yes, we did the Viking horn as
okay,
if I got it right.
You see right there, here's a little 101. You could cut those drops out and add your own things to make it even funnier. You know what I mean?
I could have, but we were both kind of talking over it.
Boy, see, James, this is where I don't get enough credit for my skill. I would get in there with the carving knife and I would tear it open. So here's the thing. Now you see how hard that is. You saw how hard the podcasting was. I write the topic list every day. DA can kind of check things off. He wants to talk about, not talk about.
Is the sub-headline to this podcast going to be Sean pats himself on the back?
100%. This is a pat myself on the back. I won the chicken challenge. I'm going to tell you. Do I not get enough credit for the job I do?
That's fair.
Wow.
Because I think a lot of people around this building think that you have one of the more desired jobs in the building.
Well, it's a fun job. There's no doubt about it, because they look at us and they see that we have a ton of fun. We're sitting there eating chicken nuggets and hot dogs and joking around, having a good time. But as you saw, James, when you step into the big man's shoes,
you actually have to do a little bit of work.
I do have to do a little bit of work, and I do it without complaining and without seeming like I have a lot of work, which I think is one of my better crafts.
So just continue to pat yourself on the back.
You know what? I
will give you some credit. We made it, but it was it was a little difficult. There were moments where I especially there were a couple breaks where I went to heat up my food or I went to grab a drink of water.
You know what? I didn't think of that. You having to fill in and not be on top of eating your food nonstop.
Right. I didn't eat that much last night.
And then you had to be shaken. You had to be like the guy who quits cigarettes and then doesn't go on the nicotine
But
patch.
then we get to the break, and if it's one of the breaks where I'm up to the top of the hour and I'm trying to put up the full hour of content, and then I went to grab a drink of water and I get a cup of coffee and come back. We're back in programming. I missed the whole break to work on the podcast.
Boy, James Ward finds himself in trouble. Well, that's going to be it. As you could tell, this was a nice little chicken challenge recap, as well as me patting myself on the back and letting all those listeners out there know that as much as of a goofball and an idiot I am, I do hard work, and James Ward can now attest. That's going to be it for the Permission Granted podcast. Thanks always for listening. YouTube.com/The DA Show. Check us out on SoundCloud, iTunes. Follow me on Twitter at MrazCBS. James, Twitter?
James Ward, CBS.
Let's get his Twitter count up, man. It's embarrassing. We got to get the guy
I'm at a paltry 784 followers.
Okay, so by a month from now, we want to see James Ward at 1,000. Let's get him there, guys.
That's a little ambitious, but I'm all for it.
Okay, by 2018, we'd like to see James Ward at 1,000 followers.
And by 2018, I'd like to still be at 784.
Okay, well, there you go. Well, as always, thank you guys for listening. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.